far. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? I have
Doing well.
a quick question. Is it possible to record this meeting as well if you weren't already planning to do so?
Yep, I got the recordings on there. Yeah, so we'll make sure everyone has access to that once we're all wrapped up here.
We're just going to give it another minute or two before we get started.
While we are holding on for more users to join, I would recommend logging into the platform and pulling it up. You have the invite link. That way, if there are any issues, you can ask me and I can help you while we're working through this today. And you can follow along with some of the steps on the training.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll give it like a little 10:35, I think, maybe, or sooner, whatever framework team wants.
And so we give it 1 minute and we can go ahead and kick off.
Perfect. Okay, I guess maybe we'll get started here. If anybody else trickles in, we have it being recorded, so we'll get into it. So for Anastasia, Ryan, thanks so much for making the time here. It's great to meet you both. Obviously, I'm sure you know Adam and Eric, and you may have seen Mark from my team in the different training modules that are available. If you haven't, you will see him. He's a familiar face across the board. So yeah, I guess, introductions, Mark, anything from your side? I know they most likely know Adam and Eric at this point.
No, it's great to see everyone. I won't be on for the entire webinar today, but this is something that I think is really important for a lot of businesses to understand, not just all of the cool, fun things that AI can do, or even necessarily just the security and data privacy aspects that need to be considered when using it, but really about how to adopt it. That's the big question mark that a lot of companies have when they're getting started, is how are we going to do this in a way that makes sense for our organization, and how are we going to do it effectively and responsibly? And that's why we're really excited to be partnered with Framework IT to help deliver not just a secure platform, but a platform that has built-in adoption frameworks, and with a team that can help you think through use cases and practical applications for AI in your organization. So I'm really excited for all of you who are, maybe old AI pros and you've been at this for a long time, but especially for those of you who are just starting out with using AI in a more formal or standardized way in your business. So just really excited for you. It's going to be a great webinar, and please don't be afraid to ask any questions. We always say that there's no such thing as dumb questions. AI is too new and too big for anything to be a dumb question. Truly anything. What does this acronym mean? What's the difference between this and that? Like, anything is a good question in this setting. So thanks for coming today.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we'll probably just kick it off and get into some of the fun stuff here. So we'll open it up to Adam or Eric or both for the first question. I think it's important to know, like, why did you partner with Hats? I know there's other technologies out there, but what was your experience with us that you liked, or just feedback for this?
Yeah, I think more from a more general perspective, in the last few years, we've realized that our clients need to adopt AI. Business is changing rapidly. We are the strategic advisor on technology for many of our clients, and they need help with this because it's such a new thing. They don't have the subject matter expertise and don't always know even strategically how to approach implementation and adoption. So given that impetus of wanting to be able to help our clients in a more meaningful way and being, I'd say, pretty good power users internally in our own organization, we set out looking for a good partner and a great platform to kind of build this practice around. And we trialed a few, to be quite honest, extensively internally. And there was three key criteria I just want to touch on that led us to Hats. One is security and data privacy. All of our clients obviously are businesses. They can't really get the good ROI and true value out of a platform if it doesn't have adequate security and data privacy protections, all of which Hats offers, from role-based access, guarantees the models won't train on your data, and much more. So that was a go, no go type of thing. It had to have business grade, enterprise grade security in place to meet our clients' needs. Number two was we wanted access to all the major large language model providers. These models are good at different things. They have different kind of capacity in terms of how much they can handle in input and how much they can handle in output, all of which we'll cover more, in other trainings as well. So we wanted access to all of them to be able to build clients' workflows, agents, etc., and pair it to the right model to get the most out of that use case and to be flexible. These things change. They come out with new models constantly, and we want to be able to rapidly adapt without having to sign up for new subscriptions, go rebuild a bunch of things. That's not very scalable. So we're looking for a partner that integrated it all into one platform, one subscription. And then the third thing, and this was more of a nice to have, but an area the Hats platform really shined, was we wanted something that was easy to build within, that a beginner and intermediate type of user could feel comfortable building some simple use cases and workflows and agents so they can get to that return on investment quicker. So after trialing a lot of platforms internally, extensively for the better part of 2024 and 2025, we really settled on Hats because it excelled in all three areas. And I'd say the fourth thing that we didn't know up front, but is kind of more rubber meets the road things. We wanted a partner that offered great support and implementation resources for us and for our clients. And Hats has been a very supportive and wonderful partner in that regard and has really wowed us with the pace of development on the platform.
Yeah, and if
Awesome.
I could add one side upgrade to that is every single Friday, Hats host a Feature Friday call with their MSP teams, and they go over the new features that have come out the previous week. And I can't tell you how many times one of us has submitted a feature request, and then the following Friday they have added that to the platform, or they say it's on their roadmap and they'll add it, and then they do add it in a couple days. I've never worked with a vendor that took feedback that quickly across the board.
Yeah, it's a big thing we pride ourselves on. We are, MSP first. We work through MSPs to help provide services to the various customers that they support. So we want to ensure that, if there's a feature that either of you see that you would like, Anastasia or Ryan, please let the framework team know, because, like, not to say it's going to happen immediately, but we do take the feedback very seriously, and Adam and Eric have seen that firsthand. So a little bit about like what we do here at Hats, because I think it's really helpful to know. Of course, we're talking, well, what actually is it? And at a high level, it's the curation of AI in one platform, meaning we take all these different models, we put them into one place, and we ensure that as a company that is looking at AI, you don't roll the dice and pick one model and hope that it's the right decision in a year from now, because we've seen how quickly these things change. Over 6 months ago, ChatGPT was very popular. Everyone today is talking about Claude. Next month, it could be Grok. There's quite literally changes to these things weekly. So as these new models come out, we want to ensure that you will always have access, hence the curation piece of that, sourcing the best and putting it all together and giving you access and making it really easy to use. And then, not worrying about the ever-changing AI landscape. We'll worry about that, and you'll always have access to the latest and greatest AI tools. More than 70 different ways to connect your data. So there's a typo in there. We got to fix that. So as such, using it at work is a lot different than using it at home. So we want to make this very work centric, where, the framework team have a very, very competitive way of doing that. They have a lot of things that are ready to go that really differentiate this from, I need a banana bread recipe to, okay, this is something that I really can use to completely reshape the way that I work. But, most importantly, security is at the forefront of what we're doing here, because shadow AI, using free tools, using unsecured tools, having, the data that framework has worked very long to secure get lost by, going and putting it into these different AI models is a big risk. And it is something that needs to be kind of a forefront consideration when using AI, not something that you want to go, oh, wait, I didn't realize that was the thing. And then, the damage is done at that point. So shadow AI is really that. And we'll get into a little bit more around security in this presentation, but it's secure. What we do at Hatz, it's very secure. Framework have thoroughly vetted us and they are security experts. And then of course, like using it. So helping you to adopt it so that you have effective usage across the board, and framework are also very good in this area, where, you'll find ways to use it effectively. But I mean, ultimately, this is some of the, I don't know, the very obvious messaging, but what we see a lot, and the statistics do prove it. AI is here, and the risk of doing nothing is quite literally too big to ignore. Meaning, I think the statistic said 68.5% of, sorry, 60, was there a question there? All good. I think the statistics said 68.5% of businesses are using AI, and then Ramp Credit Card Company came out with a report that said 51% of people are actually, their charges associated with AI. So it is being used. So from the framework's perspective and why we work together is they have visibility to see in environments that shadow AI is here. It's being used, and it creates real risk where sensitive company information is exposed, customer data can be exposed. I mean, anything that goes into an AI model. Mark Lieber made a good analogy. It's like pouring a water bottle into a swimming pool. You're just simply not going to get that water out once that happens. And that's very similar with your data into an AI model. So Framework has a responsibility, and we have a responsibility at Hatz to work with partners like Framework to not ignore the unauthorized AI usage. It's a major risk. It's a major liability, and customers are counting on their providers to have a solution. So not only do we say, hey, here's your problem, but we also give you the appropriate solution, which gives you the secure, approved AI platform for all employees. It's going to be backed by a clear AI policy, which, Framework can absolutely work together to get in place, I'm sure. Reduce the risk, empower your team, make sure that people are able to do all the great things that AI can do in a safe way and easy to evaluate, easy to adopt. And that's really, what we are looking to do here is, not leave that data exposed and give you a secure place of using all the AI tools that many people are most likely using already. And the way that we look to do that is by making sure everybody has access. So we roll this out across the board, make sure all the users have access. Because if you pick 5 and hope that it was the right decision, the 6th and 7th and 8th user are going to most likely use a tool that can expose your information. So that's a thing to keep in mind. Everyone gets access. We work together to track adoption and usage, and then we have education and use case development for real business value. So as part of this initial kind of phase to try before you buy, so to speak, I know some people may be POCs, others may have their companies added wholeheartedly. We suggest the latter, the more people you can get into this, the better, but we respect that, we're not just going to give access to a tool without, giving it the appropriate approval from a customer side. But yes, for anybody that does have access, please get your whole team added is really the messaging there. Now, I think another question for Adam and Eric, not only specific to Hatz, but I know a lot of what you do is security, and you go on your website, it's clear that you guys are experts in cybersecurity and various things around data security, data privacy. Do you see any disasters, or you see anything that is potentially going to be a challenge with shadow AI, and like maybe things you've seen previously to Hatz, or just in general, like risks associated with it?
Yeah, I think the number one risk, and this has already bit some companies in the butt, quite frankly, is people putting sensitive data into personal accounts that are not secure, that have no training guarantees ultimately. And there's world cases of this where an employee who had good intentions, they were just trying to be productive and output high quality work, used a private personal, account, input very sensitive data. It was used in a training model. That data, having been used in a training model, made its way to the public internet eventually. It was found. The company got sued. I believe it was by a customer. And it was all because of, again, good intentions. The employee was not acting maliciously, right? They were just trying to do their job well, but they didn't have access to a secure tool at work ultimately, and they did not even understand, I think, the risk of what they were doing. And that is, I think, a broader theme. There is a big education gap still with this. We've all played with it, I think, generally speaking, because it speaks English too. It's not too hard to play with, but a lot of people don't know the nuances of it, of really what these things are, how they work, and very few people, I think, are aware of the security risk. In fact, the statistics of the amount of people using personal accounts to do work is quite high and quite frightening. And we need to close that gap with education, with proper tools and governments in place in organizations. So that's one aspect of risk. There's other aspects too that I think that are also still, again, very educational. Some people are really taking all the outputs from AI as, verified truths that they can completely count on. And it's still really important to have humans in the loop to apply judgment, to verify things, to verify citations, etc. In the legal field specifically, there's already been attorneys who have gotten in big trouble for filing briefs and citing cases that were incorrect. So these models are powerful. They can do real work, and they are getting better with every iteration, but they are not flawless, just like people. And there's still a really important human in the loop element that people need to be mindful of. And again, that can be closed with proper training and adoption support and enablement, so that people understand what AI does well and where their place is, so to speak, in the workflow. As AI takes on maybe more of the task work, they need to really understand how that shifts their responsibilities and where their judgment is still needed. So I think those are just some of the two immediate ones that come to mind. Eric, are there any other, kind of big red flags or potential disasters you'd highlight as well?
Yeah, I think that kind of talks a lot about a lot of the issues. One of the largest issues is around compliance too, where you may not even know that you're uploading sensitive information into a public AI. You may not understand that it's a part of the compliance requirements to keep that data private. And part of using a secure AI platform is the training piece of, here's the kind of content that you can safely enter into a private AI that you should not and cannot enter into a publicly trained AI. And then I think one of the kind of more nebulous risks is that other of your competitors are going to be using AI, they're going to become more efficient. And if they're using a structured, planned rollout of AI, they're going to be more efficient than you are in the same space. Whereas if you were to take on a trained, structured approach to AI, your employees would get that security plus that increase in efficiency.
Yeah, very good points all around. And it's a consistent theme. A lot of like I don't know if it's unfortunate or not, but a lot of people don't realize like how easy it is. I had a similar call, like not a webinar, but it was an individual conversation with a customer the other day, and a partner, like Framework, not Framework's customer, a different organization, but it shows just how easy it happens, where they made a song about, they were trying to be funny in the office. So they took the customer list of all their customers, they took all their employees, and they put it into Chat GPT and said, like, make me a song about this and make it comical. And then the owner said, well, how did you make this? Oh, I use Chat GPT. Great. Like the free version? He's like, yeah. And the employee had no idea that he just put the entire customer list, the name of the company, and all of their employees into ChatGPT. So now, from a threat actor perspective, from a competitive perspective, like, what are other organizations like me doing for, this type of work and give me leads? Like, it's going to use their customers to produce that. Or, for security, you have the name of the account representative, you have the account they work with, you have the information around them, like, for phishing, targeted campaigns. Like, there's a lot of that data that, again, once it's in these models, even if it's with the best of intentions, there's no getting it out, because the way that these models get better is they gain access to more data. So when people use free AI tools, and even some paid tools for that regard, it trains on their data. So AI companies could add your confidential information to their training data. And as mentioned, once they have this data in their training regimen, you're not getting it out. It's in there. And that matters because loss of intellectual property, I think, is something that most people would want to avoid. And, confidential information being exposed is certainly a consideration for a lot of people. Ensuring that your business data, your sensitive information, and your company secrets are not able to be discovered by anybody. That's probably important. And, company data going with employees when they leave. I think that's a really important point as well, because that's another one that teams is quite frankly overlooked very often, where people are like, yeah, we know that free tools are bad. Nothing in life is free. So why would we use something free? We actually have a couple of our employees that buy their own subscriptions, and we tell them they could just expense them as part of the company credit card. And I said, great. Well, what happens if they leave your company? Like, we'll cancel the payment. Okay. But then they're just going to get downgraded on their account. They're still going to maintain their login. They're still going to maintain all of their history of everything that they've ever used that tool for. So in many cases, an employee leaving and maybe going to a competitor, or something happening where they leave in a regard that, maybe wasn't very respectable, that data is now with them for as long as they maintain that account. So that is a risk as well that is somewhat overlooked. Because, data security and ensuring that you have the proper policy really should be a foundational consideration. It should not be an afterthought, because, a lot of people care about security. AI is just in line with it, making sure you have a secure way of using it, and you don't have the risk of your data going to train the models. You don't have a risk of someone leaving and bringing your data with them. That you could say for sure, like, is your data private? And this is kind of I think, like, a rhetorical question would be the way to put it. But, like, do you know how your team is using AI? If there are any kind of thoughts, and maybe I don't really know, then it's worth, taking a serious look at, Hatz, and making the most out of the 30-day window that you have. And then at the end of it, hoping that, it's the right tool for you, because this is a real example of someone, like a company we work to secure, that their CEO is like, I don't really know how people are using it. So, like, I would like to know if they are. So please go ahead and review my DNS logs and see, like, if people are using it. And we found that there is a total of 35 people. It's about a 50-person organization. So, it's, again, kind of, the stat was 68.5% of people are using it. This is almost exactly that, like, 6 to 7 out of 10 people. On average of 4,193 times monthly, 221 times per day, they had queries going in across 4 different unsecured tools. So, like, how are they using that? No one can answer that question. And at that point, it is too late. So that's where ensuring that this isn't you, ensuring that, you have the proper roadmap, the proper framework, no pun intended, the proper way of ensuring that you have the right solution and the framework in place with Framework IT is very important. So I know, we touched on this a little bit, but Eric, I know you're deeply involved with this. Adam, I know that you're also very embedded in this stuff. But, like, before Hatz is in the picture, how is your team using AI? And, have you seen AI bubbling up with clients? I think that one is pretty obvious. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to answer both, but just a little bit of thoughts on, like, how you were using it before Hatz and how you're using it after Hatz, and, thoughts around AI besides what we've said already, where I know some of this has been answered.
Yeah, absolutely. So we signed up for enterprise accounts directly with some of the various well-known, we had Anthropic accounts, we had OpenAI accounts, and we're just really trying to get a sense of, quote unquote, which is best. And we quickly learned there is no universal which is best, which brought us to that desire to have access to all in one secured platform. But since 2023, we've adopted it pretty heavily. We have it aiding engineers troubleshooting things. We use it heavily in business administration, back office, HR, marketing, finance and accounting type of things, and our usage has only progressed. When we look at actually our usage of tokens, you almost see an exponential trend there. So at this point, it's very heavily integrated into most, if not all, roles in the organization, to where it is augmenting almost every task, if not automating fully some of the tasks. So it touches every hour of most of our work at this point. And in terms of how we're seeing it bubble up in conversations, it's increasingly becoming part of the conversation with almost every business's strategy. Not just clients, even our vendors. I could tell you at conferences in the industry, for example, we hear from many technology vendors, and it went from 10% of the conversation being about AI to over half are talking about how AI is integrating into their work, their solutions, etc. It is becoming very prevalent, and I think really for the reason Eric hit on, a lot of businesses are kind of seeing a threat and an opportunity here. The threat being, if I don't adopt this and my competitors do, I lose relevance, I lose competitiveness. The opportunity being the inverse of that, that if I lead the charge here, I can gain a competitive advantage, or at minimum, stay very competitive as businesses go through this kind of evolutionary curve jump of adopting this pretty impactful and powerful technology.
Yep, spot on. I mean, you guys know it better than anyone's. You're experts in the space, and you're seeing like people like a couple of years ago, AI was like, yeah, it won't be around, and now it's like people are slowly realizing that if they don't take it seriously and their competitors do, they will be in a pretty bad position.
I think even in the last year, I've seen it go from CEOs kind of looking at it as a nice to have or a we'll get there to it is a must have for a lot of CEOs in 2026. They're really starting to look at it and say, we've got to unwrap this thing and we need to have a strategy and a plan. And it needs to happen like this year. So the conversation is shifting quite rapidly. Also seeing, I mentioned the kind of the exponential growth in our own use. We're seeing that in the clients. We're seeing almost kind of hockey stick takeoff of use of the tools in their business as we review their usage and start reviewing how they're looking at it. And it's permeating beyond basic chat into more workflow automation, more agents that are augmenting people's work, et cetera, and increasingly accelerating.
Yep, totally. So all
and
valid,
I would say sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Eric, please chime in. I know you're very much ingrained with this. I know you said you burned quite an amount of usage, but it's completely changing the way that you work, which is for the better, I think, right?
Oh yeah, almost every single thing I do is impacted by AI in some form or other. And I'd say that I see the usage or the AI bubbling up in conversations both top down from a leadership to the workers and from workers up, where sometimes it's CEOs saying, I know we need AI. I know our competitors are using AI. I just don't know what to do with it. Sometimes it's, I have a strategy and I want to automate this and I don't know if AI is right or if standard like programmatic automation is right. But a lot of the times the use requirement is bubbling up from the workers who are just using AI because they know it helps them, but they don't know exactly how to use it in the best way. So I see everyone wanting to use it, and it bubbles up from all manners of the organization just for a different set of reasons. And then personally, prior to using Hatz as our primary AI, I was very entry level with AI, a ChatGPT app, Claude app, just chats back and forth. Now I have trained agents on most of my more complicated business processes that will work through those processes with me. So it's never like if I need to do something, my first thought is, can or should I build this process in an agent or a workflow so that the next time I have to do this, I have an assistant to help me through it. And 99% of the time, the process that I'm doing can and should be improved by implementing AI in some form.
Yeah. And that's really, I'm happy you mentioned that because it bridges us right into AI adoption and like really like the way that you're thinking, Eric, and the way that like Adam, a lot of the points you made and like CEOs realizing that they need it. People need help getting started. And that's really where, Eric's at the point where, to talk about running, he's probably like an Olympic sprinter at this point and the way that he uses it. And he got there by getting started, meaning like it's the way that we try to get people to think is you need to think as you're doing things throughout the day, like, can I use AI to make my life easier as a co-intelligence and do things a lot more efficiently and a lot smarter? It's not here to replace anybody. It's here to make people better at their jobs. And like we always say, it's not going to replace somebody, but somebody may be replaced by a person that does their job and uses AI to help them with their job, because like it's just going to make them more intelligent, more efficient, and give them a much better, they're doing a lot better work with it. So like we think about adoption on like a crawl, walk, run framework, meaning like we start small, we grow into it, but ultimately the key is like just to get started. And like some different kind of use cases to think about and ways that it can be really helpful in like a crawl stage might be, web research, working with files, image generation, brainstorming, CRM intelligence, enhancing existing processes, like, plugging this into your CRM. So like if you need to update a lead list, you can do so. If you need to, pull a report, you can do so, work with files, look at our SOPs for new customer intake and create an infographic showing the process step by step. Or, based on these meetings that we've had, create an opportunity in Salesforce, or, research trends and for law firms and businesses in Chicago or Illinois wider area, and then aggregate your findings into a PDF that's branded like my business. Like there's so many things that like once you start using it, you see the immediate realization of time to value. And that's like goal number one. And then goal number two is like, okay, now that you're using it, it's like, what are more ways that I can use it? Like maybe building agents, a lot of like what Eric has mentioned. And I know Framework, they have a library of custom made agents that I'm sure everyone will have access to if you don't already have access to them, where you could browse through some of the things that they've created, because again, they're experts in the space, and things that may help with, grab the AI note taker of transfers from all my calls today, and then update my CRM with the notes, and then draft follow-up emails for each client. Like a task like that may take 15-20 minutes per client, and if you do it with AI, it could take 20 minutes for 10 clients. Create a branded report in the form of a PowerPoint, use these financial reports, include forecasting, current industry, market data from a web search. I mean, multi-step things that are touching multiple different areas and done seamlessly with AI. And then, run, which is really like we always say on the next slide, we'll see it here, but like Framework are experts in AI. I more so than me. I talk about this stuff all day because I work here, but they're actually like really defining it for a lot of their customers. But at the end of the day, like, people who do very specific work and have specific roles for a specific company are going to know where AI can help them the best. Like a way that Eric uses AI to open tickets and do things that are applicable to him, an expert in AI isn't going to know exactly what his day-to-day looks like. And that's really where we say, an expert in your AI, an expert in your industry who learns, or anybody on the line here or people that see the recording, if you're an expert in your own industry and you learn a little bit about AI, you're going to be able to create much better use cases than someone who's really an AI expert who learns a little bit about your industry, because everyone knows their day-to-days better than someone who isn't living that day-to-day. So the way that we try to get people to think about it, and I love how Eric mentioned, like, throughout the day, I'm constantly looking at ways like, how do I like use AI? How do I build an agent to make this process easier? How do I integrate it more and more and more? And that's what a lot of our education is based around. It's like treating AI adoption as a tool to upskill yourself and invest in your team. And we provide all that. I know Framework has a great program as well, where there's a lot more than just some training modules. But from the Hatz side, yes, AI champion, like let's all get on the same page and learn the basics around AI, that baseline AI IQ. Then we get into the onboarding course. So I'm sure there's a bunch of people who really want to know how to use the platform, which we're about to take a look at in a moment here. But like what we're going to do in a couple minutes of looking at it is not going to do nearly enough to train people with all the great things it can do. And then, building out the quick skills around this. So, as Eric, as Adam mentioned, and then I can back it up because I'm very much ingrained in it. We innovate every single week. There are new features that come out. So as these new features come out, it's not like you're redefining. It's not, nothing changes in the platform where it's like, I can't do what I was doing. It's like, oh, there's more stuff I could do now because as AI changes, as the models get better, there's better capabilities. So we have a big kind of emphasis on like using AI to use AI. So a lot of the quick AI skills are built around that. It's like, oh, we developed this new thing to make everyone's lives even easier with AI. Let's put a short video in to talk about it. So we'll transition. We'll do little bit of a high level in the platform, just so everyone kind of knows, like, what we're talking about and all this great stuff. So in here, you have, I think there's about 70 different models, like everything from your Anthropics to your Chat GPTs. Anthropic is Claude, by the way. That's what a lot of people know by, OpenAI and Chat GPT, Gemini, Meta, Mistral, Grok is in here. There's so many different choices. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we used to get is, well, that's a lot to choose from. How do I know which one is best? Because there's so many. And that's where we now have auto model selection. From feedback, we made this feature happen where you have your lightweight models that are good for fast and routine questions. You have your performance models that are going to pick the right model for each task and route them accordingly. And then we have turbo, which is going to be maximum intelligence for complex high stake works. So think of it as like, low, medium, high in terms of the amount of power that you want. And then the AI does the rest in terms of picking whichever one is right for you. As you have these different agents that are created, I know Framework has a library of these that you'll all have access to, but other people, they can definitely create them on their own once you figure out how to do so, and it's not very hard. You'll have those in here, and you can always pin ones that you use often so that they are sitting right here.
And Michael, I just wanted to highlight something really quick as well.
Yeah, please.
The ability to automatically select the model that he just highlighted also can help manage the economics of AI use.
Massive,
We're
yes.
seeing this where a lot of people discover usually often a frontier model that they love, and then they just start using it for everything, even tasks that it is like driving a Ferrari when all you needed was a scooter. And that's not a very economic approach, actually. So that's aside from mastering the basics of working with large language models, another skill I think this people will want to master is doing so in an economic fashion, right? And that kind of not wasting money on simple tasks. So that tool actually has an element of helping you with that.
Yeah, and I love how you brought that up because it's a great kind of bridge into this here. So I was on a call earlier this morning with someone that was raving. I love Claude. Claude's all I'm ever going to use. That's the best. And it is definitely one of the best, no doubt about it. I'm not saying it's not. But for a simple task, like explain to me what I could do with the attached Microsoft 365 integration. So what we have here, we have a bunch of different tools that help you use this. So like code execution for document creation, a bunch of web searching tools, even AI to help you build apps, agents, and workflows, and, other things. And I'm going to talk about this integration and then I'll show the rest. So I, just for the sake of showing him like the economics point that Adam made. So this first prompt, explain to me what I could do with the attached Microsoft 365 integration. I used Claude Sonnet 4.6, which is considered a premium, more expensive, will use more credits model because it's got a lot more reasoning and power into it. So great, read and search emails, draft emails, calendar stuff, stuff in Teams, messaging, meetings, members, OneDrive and SharePoint, browsing files, searching files, downloading, etc. Excel, so read and write data, manage worksheets. So a lot you could do with this. There's like 82 different things. Now that was Sonnet 4.6. I then switched to Auto, which routed this to Minimax M2.5, which I'm sure most people have never heard of before. And Minimax M2.5 is 20 times cheaper than Sonnet. So for doing the exact same thing, you're saving 20 times the amount of credit. So like a dramatic difference in cost in terms of trying to be economic. And the output is almost identical if you look at them side by side. So like the question to ask is like, as Adam said, do you really need to use do you want to pay 20 times more for this result versus this result? Me personally, I would not want to do that. And that's why we have this auto. You can see routed to mini max M2.5, because we know that most people are not going to go in here and choose mini max M2.5. They're going to see this model and be like, I don't even know what that is. And that's okay because it's pretty new. And that's why part of our curation process is we'll worry about that and ensure that, you know, you don't need to know what it is, because we'll let the automatic, which is let the AI use AI to pick the right AI for what you're asking. So it's a little bit about it and why we have that feature, because, you know, we're not in the business of trying to take advantage of people and like make them use as much credits and then have to consistently upgrade. Like we want to ensure that you have the best experience. So everyone has an allocation of credits. You know, if you hit your limit, you know, you'll be rate limited. So you'll begin to lose access to some of these more premium uses more credits models, which again, if you're doing something complex, maybe you need one of those models. But we actually did a stat run internally here at Hatz, and we found that 70% of queries that we received were considered simple, meaning they could have used the Minimax 2.5 model. And what we found before we had the auto model selection is people are using these Opus models. They're using GPT 5.5, which again, really powerful, but like for the right task. Like, you know, you're not like renting a backhoe to plant a tomato garden. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the type of thing where I think Adam's LinkedIn post was hiring a surgeon to put on a band-aid. Like that's a great way of looking at it, because like you just, sure, they could put the band-aid on, but like, are you going to pay them, you know, $500 to $1,000 an hour to do that? Probably not. So that's where, you know, we'll help with that. We'll help with ensuring that, you know, it's pretty easy and just let the AI choose. So in addition to all of the different integrations, you know, we have those tools we talked about, and, you know, there's a bunch of these in here, and this list grows weekly as well. And there are ways to connect to additional tools that aren't in here. So there's definitely, like, it's not the end of the road with some of this stuff. There's custom MCPs, they're called, which is like fancy for custom AI integration. It's not like everything under the sun can be connected, but there's a lot of things that are not on the list here that are usable within the platform using some of that capability. So like we support that customization if the application that we're connecting to supports it, and, you know, framework as well. There's ways to develop these out where if anybody has something that they desperately desire, it's worth a conversation to seeing if framework can, you know, put a project together and try to make it happen. But it's like anything else in technology, it's not a one size fits all. So, you know, you have that up there. Of course, under the Discover tab, you have plenty of different choices with things that are available within this workshop here. I know Framework has a library of items that will be applicable for everyone, but when we get into these apps, these workflows, and these agents, there is collaboration that is part of it. So, you know, you're able to, you know, share these amongst people. You know, you can get in here and edit these settings and, you know, go ahead and click share agent if there's other people in your organization that would benefit from it. And all of this is just natural language based. So plain English, you know, you basically tell it, I want you to do this, that, the other thing. You could even use the AI to write the instructions. You could run these on any model you want. So as the tides change with AI, which they will, because they've been changing every month, you don't need to worry about, well, how do I use the right model for what's great today? And, you know, what will be the best one in 6 months from now? You know, we keep all that in here and we update the list. You know, you could hook these into tools and everything. I mean, there's so much you could do with these, and really with the theme of streamlining your work and, you know, instructions and whatnot. And again, you guys have access to Frameworks team who are experts in this stuff and really assists with some of the adoption. So it's not to say you're on your own, but if you want to become an expert and make these, it's not very hard. It's all natural language. You tell what you want. Even with these workflows that we have access to, and again, you could use the AI to make anything in here. So these apps, workflows, and agents can all be created with AI using that workshop assistant tool. This is one that I use every day, and it's again I just tell it what I want. So every day, like today included, usually there's a variety of meetings, anywhere from 10 to 15 of them. And it's pretty common for a lot of people that work remotely. You got stuff going on all day. So to kind of look at each one and see, okay, who am I meeting with? Did I ever meet with this person? Did they email me something that they want to cover? What do I have in Salesforce for the person that I'm meeting with? Because that's our central database here at Hatz for all the people we work with. So for every meeting, this goes through and looks at all these different details for me. So it looks at my Fireflies, which is my note taker from all the calls I've ever had, my Salesforce, my Microsoft 365, and it identifies all of this guidance. So I've completely used the AI to write the prompt for this, and runs through all that, takes that information, and then puts it into a secondary step, and then creates a pre-sales call review. And that gets emailed to me automatically every day at midnight. So I don't need to do anything. I just come in and it's sitting right in my drafts folder, and I look and it's okay, great. This is what I have to do today. So really easy way that I think a lot of people could benefit from something like this. And these are totally customizable. So there's no limit to the amount of these that anybody could have. And a lot of our training, the learning we talked about, does have information around how to make these things. And then of course the frameworks team, they have stuff. I'm sure, can't speak for Adam and Eric, but if anybody needed something made, I know that there's probably an opportunity to have a project put together for that. So yeah,
we also do office hours several times a week, and office hours could just be popping in and listening or asking questions, but a lot of times clients will bring a use case of something they want to build, or maybe started to build and haven't brought it 100% to fruition, and we'll build with you live. One of our main kind of goals or framing around this is, yes, we can come in as kind of a consultant and build for you, but Michael hit on it earlier. You know your business better, and it's going to slow you down if you have to rely on paying external consultants all of the time. So part of that crawl, walk, run journey, our goal is to get people to run as quickly as possible so that you don't depend on us to build everything for you, because the use cases are practically limitless. We want to empower you to feel comfortable building at least the basic and the intermediate use cases without needing any help from us, because that's where you're going to get the best value ultimately. And so it's a big kind of, I guess, foundation of how we look at developing training, enablement, et cetera. Even when clients have said, look, I don't have the time, I just want to pay you to build this use case, we'll say, that's great. Is there anyone on your team, though, that could ride along with us and watch us do it together so that they can actually see that this is approachable and they may be able to do it on their own next time? And that's just kind of the mentality we want to take, because there's so many tools in this platform that help you build, right? That use AI to help you build, that you don't have to be an advanced prompt engineer by any means to build some very powerful stuff on your own. And you just kind of need to get a hang of the flow type of thing. And I really believe that 99% of the professionals that work for our clients are perfectly capable of getting there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And this today is supposed to be an introduction as well. And there's ongoing sessions throughout the duration of the trial period, but just a little bit about the platform. And it's not meant to overwhelm anybody, but it's really meant to kind of show it's very in the reach, and it is a big easy button for AI. It's what we're looking to do here at Hatz. There's no coding required. You don't need to have an AI engineer on staff. In many cases, it's the person that businesses would least expect to grasp this that are grasping it the most, and that's a consistent theme we see across the board. So don't overcomplicate this. It's almost like I knew that was coming. It doesn't need to be very complicated. And we've definitely drilled this point home, but just to kind of wrap up here, using AI is really a non-negotiable for businesses in 2026. I mean, everyone knows that. So the next progression is, okay, well, using it securely is almost, I think, more important. Like, don't just go using something because you want to use AI. Make sure you have a strategy in place. Standardize your platform and minimize the platform subscriptions, and then provide access to all employees. And work with Framework. Hatz is here. Me, my team. We work closely together. I think I talk to Adam and Eric almost every day at this point. We have a direct kind of Teams channel. So if you guys need something, let us know. We're here. And I think that's one closing thought. Like the fact that, keep a human in the loop is probably the most important thing about AI besides security. So we always kind of laugh and joke. If you go buy ChatGPT, you go buy Anthropic, you go buy Copilot, and like you need help, you need a human. It's going to be a lot more difficult to get somebody competent from one of those companies to help than it would be to get in touch with Eric or Adam or Hatz or someone from our team. So humans important, great tools important, security important. But I guess if there's any questions, now is a good time to ask. I know we'll get this recording. I think Mark and I were discussing, we'll probably upload it onto like YouTube or something and have it as a private link just so we could share it out. I know Adam and Eric, in case you guys want to share it with anybody else. We understand people's schedules on Monday can be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So,
and as Michael hit on, we're doing a lot of our regular office hours, but we're actually running a lot of extra trainings throughout the week that'll really focus on kind of getting people to hit the road and get off to a little bit of a run on the basics of crawl, right? Again, we don't want to skip to run and building advanced agents, but we want to get people very comfortable with the basics of using chat while navigating the platform. So a lot of these extra trainings we're hosting in May, which if you don't have the schedule, I put my email in chat. Please email me. I'll make sure that schedule gets out to you. Encourage you to join. This is not a sequential course. The ones that Framework is doing, these are pop-ins because we know people's schedules are chaotic and busy, etc., and they can't attend 3 trainings for an hour and a half a week. So if you can't join one, but you can join the following day, please come. It's not building on something, and you're not going to be lost if you weren't able to attend some of the prior ones.
Yep. No, great. All good information. And if there's any questions, I mean, members can drop them in the chat. I hope today was helpful. We really appreciate everyone's time here this morning. I know Adam has some good stuff in there. Great. So, any last thoughts, Beatrice, Ryan? You can also come off mute if you want. I see Ryan, you popped in.
Yeah, no, I have a couple of questions. One is internally we're I don't want to say struggling with, but we need to develop an AI policy. And we don't currently have that in place right now. We're hoping that during this trial, this is going to give us an idea of kind of development of some use cases and what data we can put in, what data we cannot put in. We have certain limitations with some of our clients, even with the secure AI platform. But do you have any recommendations for developing an internal AI policy?
We have a kind of a baseline template that we're providing to clients, but nobody should just carbon copy, say this is our policy.
Sure.
One, you got to customize it and list approved tools. And then in your case, understanding enough about your business and some of the compliance and client requirements that are there, obviously yours needs to be customized even further to touch on what types of data are okay, for which even clients specifically. So there's a little bit more to that. Certainly things we can help with even the customization level of it. But again, we do have a good baseline template to get going on that front. And then one of the things we do for clients in the ongoing service is develop an initial full roadmap using the crawl, walk, run framework, and touching on everything from the governance, the training, the adoption, the championing internally, to actually illustrating specific agents and workflows that we think, based on what we know about your processes, actually makes sense to look at. And as part of building that, we actually ingest client process manuals and what have you, so we can make it real tangible to your processes, not just hypotheticals of, oh, you're in XYZ industry, let's build these agents and workflows. again, I'll never claim to know somebody's industry or business as well as they do. So we look to get actual information on standard operating procedures and processes. And then we can make it very tangible in the roadmap and say, let's build a workflow for this. Let's build an agent for this. This is low complexity. This is medium complexity, etc. I will actually be sending, each client a kind of skinny version of that based purely off like web research, right? Without taking their process manuals or SOPs. More to spark creativity and illustrate potential, I would say, than actually be the foundation of the roadmap. But it gives you kind of the Reader's Digest version of what the more thorough roadmap we build for clients is. And then we meet monthly to go over that roadmap because it's going to change. Priorities will shift. We'll discover new use cases. May find something was easier to build than we originally thought. We may find something else is far more complex and belongs further out in kind of that run phase. So those are all things, those are common challenges, I would say, Ryan, very common challenges, especially of like, where do we go from a strategic roadmap standpoint? That is actually the number one challenges business are having right now. Most of them are willing to invest in this. As soon as they invest in it, though, they go, what next? So where do we go? Right. And that's partly on us to help figure out. Obviously, it's collaborative, but because we have maybe a better understanding of what can be done and what is easy and what is difficult, we can help provide a lot of guidance of how that should slide into a roadmap as well.
Okay. And then as far as I know, this is just the trial period, but is it our organization has a certain number of credits or each user has a certain number of credits? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a kind of a flat monthly fee for a plan with unlimited users. So one of the things Michael touched on is we don't want to leave some people out because then they may use shadow AI. And that's one of the first things we want to solve from a security and governance standpoint. So there's not a per user charge that forces people to make those choices of who's worthy of getting in or not. There's different plans, tiers of plans. They each have a certain amount of credit usage. There's no overage, which is something Beautiful Hats did when they designed these packages. I think nobody likes metered billing running up unpredictably. Finance certainly hates it. So that's kind of a good note or precaution. And then you can set limits on certain users' credit usage to kind of have some government or some governance or limitation there. So all those things I think really suit a business environment well. It allows you to put everybody on without an incremental cost in terms of per user licensing, get them all access to a secure platform, give them appropriate level of access. So you can block users that have no business building agents or workflows from going and building, cooking assistant agents or something like that. And then again, you can even set kind of like quotas of how many of credit usage based on people's role and your understanding of how much they might need to use it.
So each tier is a set bucket of credits or tokens?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it's the other piece of it too. It's not like when you run out, you're done. You know what I mean? It's like with the term we use is rate limiting. So sure, if you hit your limit, you will not be able to use like Claude Opus 4.7, but like you'll still be able to use the platform. So like if you're leveraging the auto LLM selector, like that will also route you to a model that is still available, because there are some models that are under the turbo mode that have high intelligence that are very low cost. So we had that process baked in. So yeah, it's there will never be a day where you're in the middle of doing something that you need to get done by the next morning, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you've hit your limit for the day. Wait 12 hours and you could resume tomorrow at 2 o'clock, or you could upgrade. It's like you may just need to go to a different model, which is still highly capable of what you need. And then of course, if you desire to resume the model that you were using that is considered premium, there's absolutely paths to get more credits and upgrade, but like it's not just going to be done without someone approving it.
Yeah,
okay.
we also have intelligence on the credit usage, get alerts, etc. So we can even provide advanced warning of, hey, it's the middle of the month and we're at 90% of usage on the plan, and provide even further details of here's kind of the power users, here's some of the most common workflows or agents, for example, that they're using that is taking up a lot of credits. So we can help shed light on what's driving credit usage ultimately as well.
All right. And then if we have a suspected use case, we can bring it to one of the office hours and kind of.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is best done collaboratively, right? Because again, you're going to know the use case, the current process, what's possible from a process. Sometimes you redesign a process a little around automation, actually, right? But being able to discuss it, and bounce ideas off each other in office hours is extremely fruitful. And we often build them with clients. There's plenty of office hours I've been on where Eric was leading it. Somebody had an idea and they walked out with a beta version to test at the end of office hours in their organization, but got to watch his whole process building it, and next time they show up, they're like, I've built 5 workflows since we spoke. And we're like, that's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, my
All right.
biggest piece of advice if you want to come to office hours and have us build something collaboratively is if you have time from now to then, record yourself just talking through the process that you want to automate or make more efficient, and then bring that transcript to the office hours call. Because we built a agent that could take in a transcript of a business process and turn it into a workflow process of how would we automate this, what would we use to automate it. Yeah, that would be my best piece of advice. If you have something specific that you'd like us to help with, that would be helpful.
Okay. Or at the very least, just have it, typed out.
Yeah.
The process.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have
Yeah,
a
if you
written
have that
operating
already.
procedure, if you have a workflow diagram, I mean, it's pretty incredible what various, even unstructured forms of explanation or indication of what the process is, how we can actually make those kind of more tangible and tie it back to, how would we do this with AI? And we may need to layer in more details as we go to build it, that you can provide, but at least gives us early assessment of, oh, this is very doable. We would use a workflow or an agent. We're going to need to have this integration or tools, etc.
Great. Well, we're right on time. So I guess any follow-up questions from anybody here, or?
I don't have any right now. No.
Perfect. Well, I know, Ryan, you were mentioning in the recording. We'll find a way to get it out to everyone as well. So feel free to please share it. Again, the more people from your teams you get into the trial, the merrier.
Sure.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all
I
for
appreciate it.
joining.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody. We'll see you on the next
Thank you.
one.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
everybody.
Take care.
We'll see you on
Take
the next
care.
one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.